All right. Go ahead and start with the third step prayer. Thanks, Rob.
Okay, third step prayer, which can be found on page 63 of your big book. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. And I do thy will always.
Excellent. All right. The let's see where we are.
We are on page 50,
The big 50.
the
So,
big 50.
okay.
And I'll go back one paragraph to uh, the top, near the top of page 50, the second
Okay.
paragraph.
Yeah.
In our personal stories, you will find a wide variation in the way each teller approaches and conceives of the power which is greater than himself. Whether we agree with a particular approach or conception seems to make little difference. Experience has taught us that these matters, about which, for our purpose, we need not be worried. They are questions for each individual to settle for himself.
Yeah. So basically what we're saying here is that your approach, as long as it follows the program here and the steps that we've outlined or that we are outlining in this book, um, you're you're going to do fine. And you you basically are kind of free to do that. And it shouldn't be that big a deal to kind of choose your own path that you want to go with these particular steps. Again, it's really not important as far as the approach or your own conception of a higher power, but it is I think the one thing I would say is that is important is that you follow these steps uh, uh, exactly. So with that, Rob.
Yeah, now he's talking here about the personal stories and the wide variation of each, and each teller has different approaches and conceives. I just want to go back to page 29 for a second because it talks about the personal stories again, and it's the second paragraph. Each individual in the personal story describes in his own language and from his own point of view the way he established his relationship with God. These give a fair cross section of our membership and a clear cut idea of what has actually happened in their lives. So, each individual describes in his own language and his own point of view the way he established his relationship with God. And that's what the personal stories are all about, is how they were able to establish a relationship with God. So I just wanted to bring that out. On one proposition, however, we are on page 50, everybody. On one proposition, however, these men and women are strikingly agreed. Each one of them has gained access to and believes in a power greater than himself. This power has in each case accomplished the miraculous, the humanly impossible. As the celebrated American statesman put it, let's look at the record.
Yeah. Every one of them has gained access to and believes in a power greater than himself. That's that's key to this success. So I would just say that that is the bottom line is that you just need to accomplish that, and then things start to fall into place and in good order. Rob?
Yeah, this gentleman that came up with the let's look at the record was Al Smith, who was governor of New York. There's some information in the chat if you want to check him out. Uh, but the thing is that every one of them, and this is Bill talking about the first 100 people. Okay, he's not talking about just anybody. He's talking about the first 100 people. Every one of them has gained access to. And remember, these were low bottom drunk. These were people that were in treatment centers and in the hospital. Okay, they weren't just people that were walking in off the street. Today, with the fellowship, we have people walking in off the street. Some of them are heavy drinkers. Some of them are in trouble with the law. So, in order to get the law off their back, they come to meetings, get a piece of paper signed saying that they attended meetings. They got their work on their back, etc. So, we don't know if everybody coming into the fellowship is an alcoholic or not. That's not up for us to really decide. That's up for each individual. But the people that they were working with were real badly off, in treatment centers, and in hospital, being, Dr. Bob. That's where, he was working with all the people, is at the hospital, you know? So they said, let's look at the record. Here, we're on page 50 for those that just joined us. Here are thousands of men and women, worldly indeed. They flatly declare that since they have come to believe in a power greater than themselves, step 2, to take a certain attitude towards that power, step 3, and to do certain simple things, steps 4 to 12, there has been a revolutionary change in their way of living and thinking. In the face of collapse and despair, in the face of the total failure of the human resources, they found that a new power, peace, happiness, and sense of direction flowed into them. This happened soon after they wholeheartedly met a few simple requirements. Once confused and baffled by the seemingly futility of existence, they showed the underlying reasons why they were making heavy going of life. Leaving aside the drink question, they tell why living was so unsatisfactory. They show how the change came over them. When many hundreds of people are able to say that the consciousness of the presence of God is today the most important fact in their lives, they present a powerful reason why one should have faith.
Yeah. And I think this is an important paragraph, especially since it goes through most of the steps as they're talking about in the beginning. And this happens soon after they wholeheartedly met a few simple requirements. Once confused and baffled by the seemingly futility of existence, they show the underlying reasons why they were making heavy going of life. It really is something that you got to do. The idea here is that, committing yourself completely, being open and honest about it, and this you will get this new power. A peace will come over you. I know that happened to me. There was this kind of flush feeling that I had. My shoulders dropped, and this feeling of calm and strength came up, and there I was after having just decided to stop the fight, and this futility of existence went away, and all of a sudden I was able to look at sobriety in a much different way, and was able to get past it. So living became a lot more satisfactory, and other things started to improve as well. So, Rob?
Yeah, there's a line. This is a long paragraph too, and there is so many important things that it's talking about. But one thing that I really want to highlight is that they flatly declare that since they have come to believe in a power greater than themselves, step 2, to take a certain attitude towards that power, step 3, and to do certain simple things, 4 to 12, there has been a revolutionary change in their way of living and thinking. So I want to go to page 27 for a second, because it has one of the really important lines to me. Okay. And what it says on page 27 is ideas, emotions, and attitudes, which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men, are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate. And, and that's the thing, it says in the book, selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of the trouble. We step on the toes of others and they retaliate, seemingly without provocation. So now we're coming up with a whole new set of ideas, emotions, and ideas. A whole new concept, a whole new way of living. What can I do for Lisa today? Okay, how can I make Mary's day a little bit better? And that's what it's all about. Is instead of thinking about myself 24/7, thinking about what can I do for other people. Now, do I fall into the habit of thinking about myself? Yes, I do. But what do I do? When I realize that that's what I'm doing, I try to push that aside. Say, God, what would you have me do? Okay. And this is the whole thing, is that yes, we do get it back into bad habits. Why? Because we've been doing it most of our life. Okay. We're not perfect people. That's why we have step 10 and 11. When we make a mistake, when do we rectify it? Now. Deal with it now. Okay. So it doesn't carry over. Exactly, Mary B. Now. Okay. So we deal with these things right away so that we don't get resentments. Okay. If Leo says something that I find that's hurtful to me, I say, Leo, like, did you really mean that? You're like, do you feel that way about, you know, and we deal with it. We don't sweep things under the carpet, or we try not to. Okay? Because we don't want resentments. Because what is the number one offender? Resentments. This world of ours has made more material progress in the last century than in all the millenniums which went before. Almost everyone knows the reason. Students of ancient history tell us that the intellect of men in those days was equal to the best of today. Yet in ancient times, material progress was painfully slow. The spirit of modern scientific inquiry, research, and invention was almost unknown. In the realm of the material, men's minds were fettered, tied up, restrained, controlled, that's what fettered means, by superstition, tradition, and all sorts of fixed ideas. Some of the contemporaries of Columbus thought a round world preposterous. Others came near putting Galileo to death for his astronomical heresies.
What they're trying to describe here is the closed-mindedness of people, and what we're basically trying to say is that your progress is hindered by that closed-mindedness and and your belief structure. So what they're asking or going to change, or what they're going to propose here, is that you change your belief structure and open your mind and your heart, and that in and of itself will help to usher in this higher power and this new way of thinking. So basically, what they're doing here with these quote fixed ideas. Rob?
Yeah, anytime they mention Galileo, all I can think of is the Queen song. Galileo, Galileo. But the thing is that what, if these people didn't go and prove that the world was not flat, we would still think it was flat. These are people that have you know we are told certain things that we believe. We don't challenge them. Okay. But there are certain people that take a look up in the stars and say this, that, and the other, and they're able to see things that we just can't. Why? Because we've been told since we were little that, it's not possible. You can't do that. You know, keep an open mind. We ask ourselves this: are not some of us just as biased and unreasonable about the realm of the spirit as were the ancients about the realm of the material? Even in the present century, American newspapers were afraid to print an account of the Wright brothers' first successful flight at Kitty Hawk. Had not all efforts at flight failed before? Did not Professor Langley's flying machine go to the bottom of the Potomac River? Was it not true that the best mathematical minds had proved man could never fly? And not people said God had reserved this privilege to the birds. Only 30 years later, the conquest of the air was almost an old story, and airplane travel was in full swing.
Yeah, and how far has it come since then, even? So it's an idea here is that there was just an example of where there was a belief that man can't fly. Once we were able to achieve that, there was still the resistance and reluctance to print the idea that it actually happened, because we still had that belief that only birds were relegated to the benefit of flight. And then obviously now, 30 years later, flight was routine. And obviously, just like I said at the beginning here, flight now is more than routine. It's just it's woven into the fabric of everyday life. So what they're basically saying here is that, even if you think that just because that you haven't had this higher power, you haven't tapped into it, being able to tap into it, over time, you're going to find that it is not only possible, but it becomes routine, and then it gets woven into the fabric of your life. So the idea here is that try to keep an open mind and let the higher power flow in. Rob?
Yeah, one of the reasons that the newspapers didn't want to write a report of the Wright brothers' success is that Professor Langley's flight was on December 8th, 1903, and it crashed. I'm going to put into the chat later on some pictures they have pictures of the actual plane in the water. And the Wright brothers, 8 days, 9 days later, the Wright brothers were successful. So, 1 week they're writing about how one was a failure and the other one was a success. It makes me think of the news that we listen to now. Are we getting are we getting the news, or are we getting viewpoints from other people? And that's what, is scary, because we listen to one news channel, we hear their viewpoint. It used to be years ago when I was a kid, Walter Cronkite and all these people, they just told the news. You know, whether you liked it or not was one thing, but now it seems like everybody's got their own viewpoint and their own ideas of why they're broadcasting their slant on the news. You know, so take everything with a grain of salt. Is the only thing I can really say. And we had the Concorde plane, the fastest plane. Moving people from one point to another. All these things are made possible. Why? Because of man, thinking outside the box. We try so many things on our own and we fail. The God idea does work. Bumblebees can't fly, but they don't know about that, so they fly anyways. What a beautiful thought. Don't tell me I can't. Tell me I can. And let's see where I end up. So let's get back. We're on page 51, everybody. I got to find out, where am I?
Top of page 52.
Thank you. This world of ours has made more material progress in the last century than in all the millenniums which went before. Almost everyone knows the reason. Students of ancient history tell us that the intellect of men in those days was equal to the best
Bob.
of today. I've read that.
Yep, Rob.
Sorry, but
It's
we
okay.
asked
We're
ourselves.
on page 52, at the top of page 52.
Oh, I moved my page over. That's why. I apologize to everybody.
It's all right.
But in most fields, our generation has witnessed complete liberation of our thinking. Show any longshoreman a Sunday supplement describing a proposal to explore the moon by means of a rocket, and he will say, I bet they do it. Maybe not so long either. Is not our age characterized by the ease with which we discard old ideas for new, by the complete readiness with which we throw away the theory or gadget which does not work for something new which does?
Yeah. And if you think about it, Bill was kind of a visionary when he was writing this, because he was talking about actually going to the moon via a rocket, which obviously that was, about 30 years prior to when it was actually going to happen. And we actually did it in not too many decades later. So he's speaking as if he was a longshoreman here, but I'm sure that Bill was actually saying that I bet they do it, maybe not so long either. Again, what we're trying to get across to you is that if there is this notion that is so foreign, that is so unobtainable that if you just open your mind, relax your beliefs, and allow yourself to think what the art of the possible is, you're going to find that you can actually go after this higher power and achieve it, and achieve a partnership, a relationship with this higher power, and doing um, what is necessary in order to gain that strength that you're going to get by finding this higher power, in helping you out. So again, it's just another example of where there's this closed-mindedness, this no, we can't do that. Let's think differently and say that we can, and show here is what is possible. Rob?
Yeah, stop thinking with the head and start thinking with the heart. And that's one way of looking at it. You know, as Leo said, Bill was a visionary. He was into all these, radios and things, and the idea of going to the moon to most people would be, no way. But the book was written in 1938, was published in 1939, and in 1969, man landed on the moon. Wow. 30 years later, only, you know, 30 years goes by pretty quick, as we can all probably attest to, and, they talk about throwing away the old gadget for the new one. All I think about when I read that line is my cell phone. And how often, do we have to get a new cell phone, iPad, computer, etc., because, a new one has come out, or that we have to upgrade because, you know, the computer will not run the new programs. It's obsolete after only, we'll say, 10 years. If we're lucky, it lasts that long, you know? So we're constantly, throwing out old gadgets for new gadgets. Now we have to throw out our old thoughts and replace it with new ones. Because did our old thoughts work? No, they just got me drunk all the time. And I kept getting into the same problems. Why? Because I kept doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, thinking this time it's going to be different. So we had to ask ourselves why we shouldn't apply to our human problem the same readiness to change our point of view. One, we were having trouble with personal relationships. We couldn't control our emotional natures. We were a prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness. We were full of fear. We were unhappy. We couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. Was not a basic solution of these bedevilments more important than whether we could see newsreels of lunar flight? Of course it was.
Yeah, and of course here Rob is talking about the bedevilments, and there are eight of them in this paragraph, and we can kind of review them. One, we were having trouble with personal relationships. Two, we couldn't control our emotional natures. Three, we were a prey to misery and depression. Four, we couldn't make a living. Five, we had a feeling of uselessness. Six, we were full of fear. Seven, we were unhappy. And eight, we couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. And this solution to these bedevilments is really to open your mind and find that higher power and allow that strength to guide you in a whole new way, a whole different way, this kind of change in this, just your whole nature, and get past this. So we will soon talk about the promises, which are on page 63, but this is just the beginning of talking about the things that being closed-minded, cut off, and obstinate about the possibility of opening up and finding this higher power can do. Rob?
Yeah, page 83, Leo. I know it was you just misspoke. The
Oh,
promises aren't, yeah, no, not a big deal. And but it just goes to show we're on page, 52 right now. But on page 83, we're going to have a whole new way of living, whole new way of life. Oh, it's the complete opposite. 30 pages. Can we make it through 30 more pages? You better believe it, we can. And the whole thing is about, you can take these, instead of putting we in front of, put I. I was having trouble with personal relationships. I couldn't control my emotional nature. I was a prey to misery and depression. I couldn't make a living. I had a feeling of uselessness. I was full of fear. I was unhappy. I couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. Jeez, yeah. Maybe not all these things I was having trouble with, but quite a few of them. You know, I certainly was of help to nobody. I wasn't a help to myself, you know. So, am I ready to change? Am I ready to give my life over and believe that, somebody else is in charge? Am I ready to have a higher power? Take away all these things, root and branch. When we saw others solve their problems by a simple reliance upon the spirit of the universe, we had to stop doubting the power of God. Our ideas did not work, but the God idea did.
Yeah. So looking around, you're looking at people that have been able to solve the drink problem. They've found this higher power, and the idea of finding this higher power actually works. And when you look at your own ideas and they're not working, it's time to set that aside and look at the others that have been successful with it and try and follow their lead. Rob?
Yeah, many years ago in a fellowship, I met a gentleman who, nice guy, really nice guy. Really liked him. He had a good sense of humor, etc. And when he got up to tell a story, he was going to treatment center, and the people asked him, "Yeah, how's your life going?" He goes, "Well, not very good." you know. And they said, "Well, you know what? Have you ever thought about stop running your life and let somebody else do it?" He goes, "Well, no, not really." They said, "Well, maybe you should start thinking that way," which changed his whole life. Because he realized that, you know what? I'm running my life into the ground. Maybe it's time I gave my life, my will over to something else, something that, you know, wants nothing but the best for me. That has my back, that I can talk to 24/7. Would that be a better life? Am I willing to try it? Am I willing to try it? Remember, we start with willingness. The Wright brothers' almost childish faith that they could build a machine which would fly was the mainspring of their accomplishment. Without that, nothing could have happened. We agnostics and atheists were sticking to the idea that self sufficiency would solve our problems. When others showed us that the God sufficiency worked with them, we began to feel like those who had insisted the Wright brothers would never fly.
Yeah, basically looking at the success of somebody that opened their minds and actually dreamt that something was possible and went after it and worked towards it very successfully and with great benefit. Um, Essentially, is what we're saying here is that um, those in you feel like the person that said, well, it's impossible to fly, and you're like, well, I wish I wasn't that person. I wish I wasn't the kind of person that had a closed mind and um, and didn't think of the good that could happen here as far as that goes. So if we equate this to opening your mind to a higher power and believing in the spiritual nature of a higher power, you find that maybe being closed off from it isn't the way to go, and you don't want to feel like that. And what we're trying to say is it's okay to not feel like that, even if it is something that you still feel. Rob?
Yeah, when I came into the fellowship, beaten into a pulp, basically, a shell of a man, miserable as sin, and the more I came into different meetings, etc., and you would see happy people. You'd also see some miserable people too. And but it was the people that had that I'll say a glow about them. They were happy. They were laughing, you know, and they were, they'd come up to me all the time, give me a hug and say, how are you doing today? And I thought, you know what? I want to be more like that person. I just want to enjoy life. I want to start to enjoy things in life. You know, wh- there's miserable people no matter where you go. Emotional sobriety they talk about. Like, yeah, we can be sober and we can be miserable. We can be sober and we can enjoy the living daylights out of this life that we have been given. How we look at it too, and how much we're willing to give back. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to be like the people that were happy. What did they do to get happy? What did they do? What do they do daily?
Yep.
Hang around with those people, find out what they're doing, because that's what I want. Happy, joyous, and free. We were talking about this before the meeting started. That's what we want to be, is happy, joyous, and free. That's what the big book talks about. How can I be happy, joyous, and free? By doing the things in this book. Practical experience shows that nothing with so much ensure immunity from drinking as working with other alcoholics. It works when all other activities fail. So go help an alcoholic. Logic is great stuff. We like it. We still like it. It is not by chance we were given the power to reason, to examine the evidence of our senses, and to draw conclusions. That is one of man's magnificent attributes. We agnostically inclined would not feel satisfied with a proposal which does not lend itself to reasonable approach and interpretation. Hence, we are at great pains to tell why we think our present faith is reasonable, why we think it more sane and logical to believe than not to believe, why we say our former thinking was soft and mushy when we threw up our hands in doubt and said, we don't know.
Yeah. So really what they're trying to do is say that the what is reasonable, and it's starting to think and feel reasonable because you're watching other people do it, and in great numbers. We're not talking about one or two people. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people, and there should be some at least satisfaction with that feeling, and it's not so insane. It's not so illogical to believe. It's something that you should be able to grasp the concept of and apply it. I think they say it, the soft and mushy thinking, and say we don't know. So it's okay. It's okay to doubt, but be curious. It's okay to be a little resistant, but be a little bit bold and a little bit brave, and you'll find that this new way of thinking is actually attainable, and it's something that can be gotten and developed and to great benefit and with a lot of strength. Rob?
Yeah, I've got written at the top of my page here. Fear is a faith that bad things will happen. Faith in God is a belief that good things will happen. So if I'm living in fear, I think bad things are going to happen. If I have faith in God, I know that good things are going to happen because God's going to protect me. It's going to look after me. So we have the fear prayer. God, take this away so that I can enjoy the day. Take away this fear that I'm feeling right now. Take away this anxiety that I'm feeling. Why am I feeling this way? I don't know, but God, please take it away. You know, the other analogy that I'll use is the wind. We talk about, we can't see wind, but we can see the effects wind has, but the leaf, especially here in Canada right now, most of the leaves have fallen from the trees, so they're all on the ground. And it's got a nice cool breeze coming through too. So the leaves are blowing on the street and on the grass and on the driveways and all over the neighborhood. People are out with their blowers trying to blow them off, but if they just let the wind do it, they'll be fine. But we can see we can see the effects of wind. Now we don't see God, but we can see the effects God has in our life. Who looked after me when I couldn't look after myself, to make sure that I was safe and protected? It wasn't me, you know? So we try to take these things and think about them. When we became alcoholics, crushed by a self-imposed crisis, we could not postpone or evade. We had to fearlessly face the proposition that either God is everything or else he is nothing. God either is or he isn't. What was our choice to be?
And I think so the idea here is that we've got to lay aside our fears, face this head on, and either make this choice that God is or he isn't. If you read on, and we'll do that in just a minute, it actually explains this a little bit better. But the idea here is you don't really have to make that choice that he is or he isn't, black and white. You can actually start to believe. You can start to let a certain amount of it come in, and be the educational kind of person that gets to this point. It doesn't have to be an all-encompassing one kind of bright flash of white light, and all of a sudden, there it is. It can come over time, but your choice really, the idea here is if you're still closed-minded, you're still in disbelief, then you're going to have a really hard time getting to this point. What we're trying to do is give you examples, the Wright brothers, and as the example that they have in the book. The idea behind this is that there were a lot of people that just didn't believe that it was even possible to fly, and yet these two brothers did believe it was possible, and so in taking that ability, that approach, and saying that it is possible, that you know that it's possible because you see other people doing it, and you want what they have, you're going to be able to do that. So let's read on, and it'll actually help explain this all or nothing kind of approach that Bill's explaining in this short paragraph. Rob?
Sounds great, Leo. Arrived at this point, we were squarely confronted with the question of faith. We couldn't duck the issue. Some of us had already walked far over the bridge of reason toward the desired shore of faith. The outlines of the promise of the new land had brought luster to tired eyes and fresh courage to flagging spirits. Friendly hands had stretched out in welcome. We were grateful that reason had brought us so far. But somehow, we couldn't quite step ashore. Perhaps we had been leaning too heavily on reason that last mile, and we did not like to lose our support.
No, and that's part of it. There's an old saying, it's leap and the net will appear. The idea behind that is there's some fear around that. There is that idea that if it's doesn't seem reasonable, that you should be afraid of it. The point they're making here is that there's outstretched arms and hands of people that are there willing to help you through. And so making this decision, either the higher power is or it isn't, doesn't have to necessarily be that way. You can walk across that bridge, you can get to that point, you can reach out and rely on other people to help you get those final steps. And to do those final steps, you will find that if you are open-minded and open-hearted, that you will find this higher power and be able to tap into that inner strength that is the benefit of it. Rob?
Yeah, I want to throw another analogy that I heard. I love analogies because they make sense to me and they bring it to light. It's the tightrope walker who is walking along the tightrope with a wheelbarrow, and he pushes the wheelbarrow all the way across. Now, we know that the wheelbarrow, the tightrope walker made it across. We have faith that he's going to be able to do it. Okay. Are you willing to sit in the wheelbarrow while he pushes it across? Think about that. That was natural, but let us think a little more closely. Without knowing it, had we not been brought to where we stood by a certain kind of faith? Or did we not believe in our own reasoning? Did we not have confidence in our ability to think? What was that but a sort of faith? Yes, we had been faithful, abjectly faithful, to the God of reason. So, in one way or another, we discovered that faith had been involved all the time.
Yeah. The idea here is that if you don't think that you have faith, it's just a matter of sitting back and opening up your the aperture of the lens that you're looking through and see the fact that you have faith in yourself, your abilities, the things that you do. You have faith in that, and that is something that is easily thought of. It's easily reasoned, and so if you take that thought and that reason and the idea that you really do already have faith, all you're doing is just opening, like I said, the aperture of the lens you're looking through and applying that faith into other areas that you hadn't been looking at before. But the idea here is that you really do already have faith. So it shouldn't be that much of a stretch in order to have faith in your ability to find that higher power and tap into that inner strength. Rob?
We found too that we've been worshippers. What a state of mental goose flesh that used to bring on. Had we not variously worshipped people, sentiment, thing, money, and ourselves? And then with a better motive, had we not worshipfully beheld the sunset, the sea, or a flower? Who of us had not loved something or somebody? How much did these feelings, these loves, these worships have to do with pure reason? Little or nothing, we saw at last. Were not these things the tissue out of which our lives were constructed? Did not these feelings, after all, determine the course of our existence? It was impossible to say we had no capacity for faith, or love, or worship. In one form or another, we have been living by faith and little else.
Yeah, it's really just trying to let you see and feel what you've already done and what you've already been a part of, and that is this faith and love for these things like a sunset or the sea or a flower or somebody else. And where do you spend most of your time and energy? Well, it's thinking, and thinking is a form of or a bridge to faith, and in the things that you're doing. Um, it's there. It's basically what they're just saying is this faith is already there, and that should at least make you feel a little more comfortable in reaching out in finding this higher power. Rob?
Yep. On this page, and I put it in the chat, I don't know how many people check the chat or not, but in their faith or faithful is used 7 times on this page. What do you think Bill's trying to get us across?
Yeah.
Gotta have faith. Which makes me think of George Michael and his song Faith.
Hmm.
I'm not good. Yeah, well, think about that. Amy B, we are on page 54. Great to have you here. Imagine life without faith. Were nothing left but pure reason, it wouldn't be life. But we believed in life. Of course we did. We could not prove life in the sense that you can prove a straight line is the shortest distance between 2 points. Yet there it was. Could we still say the whole thing was nothing but a mass of electrons, created out of nothing, meaning nothing, whirling on to a destiny of nothingness? Of course we couldn't. The electrons themselves seem more intelligent than that. At least so the chemist said.
Right. And so, were nothing left but pure reason, it wouldn't be life if you were to imagine life without faith. Um, it's really just driving the point home that even life itself is full of faith, and there's no way to have life without faith. Rob?
Yeah. Hence we saw that reason isn't everything. Neither is reason, as most of us use it, entirely dependable, though it emanate from our best minds. What about people who prove that man could not never fly? Yet we have been seeing another kind of flight, a spiritual liberation from this world. People rose above their problem. They said God made those things possible, and we only smiled. We had seen spiritual release, but liked to tell ourselves it wasn't true.
Yeah. So here again, we're talking about, you know, not being a part of that group that's close-minded, not being a part of the group that is saying that it's impossible. Looking at the other people who have picked up this toolkit and they've gone and run with it and they basically have solved their problems. They've got a sober life. They're living a sober lifestyle, and that includes looking out for others primarily. And in doing so, they find that they can not only recover from alcoholism, but they can actually improve their life in many other ways as well. So, watching that, seeing that, hearing that, and being a part of that is something that we're basically saying is put down the sword and the shield. Stop fighting the idea that you can't believe and start to believe and get this belief structure in place, and the faith will follow. And in doing so, you will find this higher power and be able to achieve what the others have been able to achieve. Rob?
They said God made these things possible, and we only smiled. What a beautiful line. The thing is that when I talked about, I wanted to find people that were happy, joyous, and free, that were happy. Well, when you talk to them and say, well, what is it has been a change in your life? How come you don't drink anymore? Why don't and when they tell me that, they found God, Evie Thatcher told Bill, I've got religion. Changed his whole outlook on life. Didn't keep him sober for a long period of time, but it did for a short period of time, and he was able to pass that on to Bill. Evie did what he had to do, pass it on. Bill looked at him, saw the change in him. Bill wanted that too. You know what I want? What Leo has. Am I willing to do the things that Leo does in order to get what Leo has? Am I willing to go through the 12 steps, get my spiritual experience, and keep passing this message on? Remember, it's not a one and done. You don't just do the steps and that's it. I'm finished. I never have to do another thing. No, we have to keep, our spiritual connection. So the greatest line, I think, in the book is coming up now. Actually, we were fooling ourselves, for deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. It may be obscured by calamity, by pomp, by worship of other things, but in some form or other, it is there. For faith in a power greater than ourselves and miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives are facts as old as man himself.
Yeah. And so we're basically saying, look, it is there. It is something for you to start to dig down and find for yourself. The fact that you already have this higher power from within, and maybe it is obscured. Maybe there is things that are in the way. Maybe you just need to kind of clear a path, so to speak, for it to come through. But there it is, and again, really just trying to drive the point home that it's already there, that it's easy, that it's even easier than you thought, that you could actually open your mind and your heart and hear it and grab a hold of it and have that power greater than yourself. It's right there. It's just within reach. Rob?
How often have we heard, where do I find God? You know, this book is telling us exactly where God is. Deep down inside every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. Where do we look? Inside. Look for God inside ourselves. Okay, stop looking with the head. Start using the heart, and you will find God. Remember, God does not make too hard terms for those who seek Him. You know, it's another great line in the book. You know, all we have to do is say, come into my life. I need you right now. How many times in the book about Fitzmail falls down to his knees and says, if there is a God, may Him show Himself now. You know, because he was a minister's son, had enough with religion. Dr. Bob, his father was a Sunday school teacher. Dr. Bob was fed up with all the church stuff. You know, said they wouldn't darken the church doors again unless he had to. You know, they had given up on religion. They had had enough. But push came to shove, and they realized that they needed God. They wanted God in their life to make their life better. Do you believe that God can make your life better? You know, when I take a look at all the different squares here and realize what God has done for all of us, our higher power, whatever you want to call God, their own understanding. Because Linda's idea of God might be different than mine, might be different than Larissa's. Okay. But the idea is there. All we have to do is search and just call on God, and He will come into our lives. Leo, this I think is a great place to stop, because next week we get to read this line again.
Yep.
As I say, I have highlighted this, and because people always ask, where do I find God? Where? Well, this book tells us exactly where. We never have to worry about that again. So, you want to bring in Mr. Bill?
Yes, sir.
Jersey Bill.
Yeah, hi, this is Bill from New Jersey. Thanks a lot, guys. Good job today. This is a really good chapter. I mean, this is basically the spirituality of this program. This is about step 2. And what Bill Wilson is trying to do here, he's trying to give us some logical reasons on why we need to believe in something. It doesn't matter what you believe in, whatever you use for your higher power, that's your own business. And Bill's just trying to convince us that we need to believe in something, because we don't have enough power to deal with alcoholism. That's why we're powerless over alcohol. So step 2 is the answer to step 1. We get a power greater than ourselves in our life. And that's basically what he's trying to do here. He's trying to give us different reasons or logical reasoning as to why we should believe in something. He's just saying it's easier to believe in something than it is to believe in nothing. Some people don't believe in anything. That's fine. That's their business. They can still go through this process, and somewhere down the line, they'll probably get a belief system in something. And that's what Bill's trying to do here with all these different little stories or ideas that he came up with. Talked about Columbus, talked about Galileo, talked about the Wright brothers. These were all, and he was trying to get the point across that people that have old ideas and keep going along with their old ideas don't really make any kind of progress. And these people came up with new ideas, and they went along with them and tried them, and they made progress, and they worked for them. And all he's saying is we need to come up with some new ideas, because our old ideas weren't working. Our old ideas were keeping us drunk. So we need to get some new ideas. And basically the new idea that he's trying to get across is we need to rely on a higher power instead of trying to rely on our own self-sufficiency and our own self-knowledge, because that stuff doesn't work. We're beyond human aid when we become alcoholics, and we can't, and in order to get better and to get through this, we need to rely on something other than ourselves, because our willpower, our choice, our self-will, all of that stuff put together just doesn't work. When it comes to alcoholism, alcohol is capable of defeating all of that stuff. So we need to get a power in our life that's greater than ourselves. And that's the point he's trying to tell us. And that's what he's trying to get across to us here. So You just need to decide what you want to believe in and just believe in it and use that as your higher power. And you can use that to get through AA. And according to AA, you can use whatever you want as your higher power. You don't have to believe what I believe, or you can believe what I believe. That's your own business. That's your own choice. In AA, everybody is allowed to believe whatever they want to believe. Most other organizations, spiritual, different things that you could get into, you have to believe whatever their dogma is, whatever they say that their belief system is. And if you don't believe it, you can't be a member of their club. You have to believe what they believe. In AA, you're allowed to believe whatever you want. That's the wonderful thing about AA. Nothing is rammed down our throat. Everybody's got the right to their own conception of God. And conception means your own idea. Whatever you think your higher power is, whatever you think the word God stands for, you can use that, and that's fine. And according to AA, it makes no difference. It all winds up the same. Your higher power is going to help keep you sober, and that's basically what this whole thing is about. Now, back on page 50, it says, whether we agree with a particular approach or conception seems to make little difference. It doesn't matter what anybody believes in, as long as you know that you're not running the show, because when we try to run the show, it usually blows up in our face. And when it comes to alcoholism, we're incapable of defeating it all by ourselves. So we need help from a higher power. And that's what this whole chapter is about. And that's the point that Bill Wilson is trying to get across. And I heard somebody say this years ago, I'd rather act like there is a God and then find out there isn't than to act like there isn't and find out there is. So it doesn't hurt you to do the next right thing. It doesn't hurt you to try to be a good guy. As long as you believe in something, you'll be able to get through this. And that's the point that Bill's trying to get across. That's pretty much all I got on this. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Bill.
Let's do the serenity prayer, sir, and then we'll...
You got it, sir. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.